Now, Conor D'Arcy, who's Deputy Chief Executive of the Martin Lewis charity Money and Mental Health, now joins us. Hello to you, Conor.
Hi, John.
Hi, and you've got strong views on this subject, of course, as well. Just give us a sense of where you stand.
So we talk a lot about the cycle between money and mental health problems and how when your mental health isn't in a great position, it can make it much harder to bring in the income that we all need. And I think nowhere is that more true than when it comes to the workplace, when it comes to younger people. So we're really pleased that the Milburn Review does put such an emphasis on this group. About 1 in 4 people who are aged 16 to 24 generally have a mental health problem, and looking at people who are neat, about 40% of those who have a disability, their main condition is a mental health problem. So I think in the past, and again, the report does a good job of identifying this, it was seen as a sort of an add-on, as something to consider, as something to maybe flex a system to make sure that someone with a mental health problem could get through it. But actually, it's become such a massive issue and is affecting so many people, leading to some of these really bad outcomes, that a revamp and putting it right at the heart of these plans, I think, is going to be a really important step.
Yes, and it almost goes without saying, but let's talk about it. You take a pretty, I suppose, brisk view of those who will argue, because many people do, that when we talk about young people with impediments in the form of their mental well-being to work, some argue that we're talking about young people who are soft, for want of a better word, maybe too ready to make use of welfare benefits. I mean, what do you say to that?
Again, I think it comes through from the Milburn Review. It comes through in our research. We do research with people with mental health problems every week, and the vast majority of people really want to be able to work. And it's all about finding the job and the employer that works for them. When we hear the good stories where an employer understands how a mental health problem affects you practically, that you might have a fluctuating condition where you can have weeks or months where you're totally fine, doesn't affect you in any way, and then sometimes it can be quite tough. And that there are changes that you can make maybe to the types of tasks that you're doing, or the hours that you do, or a good sick pay policy. Those can make such a huge difference to keeping people in work. Because when we hear the bad stories, when employers don't understand, when they don't know how to flex, when they actually see some time off or someone coming forward saying they have a mental health problem as a bit of a red flag, and that just ends up with people leaving the workplace, feeling really disheartened and worried about, are they ever going to find a job or a workplace that suits them?
Yeah, 1 in 4 young people saying they have some sort of a mental well-being issue is a fearfully high proportion. How do you account for it, Conor?
I mean, it's something that is there right across the age range, to be honest. It is a bit higher in this younger age group, and there's lots of discussions over the role of social media or a whole range of other things. But it's been pretty consistent around 1 in 5, 1 in 4 people with a mental health problem for a long time. And I think that's why, whatever you think about some of the shorter term drivers, and there's an important debate to be had there, this has long been a really large group. The focus on them, again, is really important, but starting to actually take the action that's needed, do the change, put in the investment, understand and listen to people with mental health problems, listen to young people who are going through this and say, what would actually help you? What do you want to see? That feels really important now.
And so many conversations, so many issues lead back to the subjects of social media. And you'll have reflected on this. How do you see the importance of social media in this conversation about young people and the workforce?
I think, it's, again, there's a debate to be had about the role that it plays. I think fundamentally, when you think about it, there is just going to be lots that employers can do, that the health system can do, and that the wider sort of benefits and employment support system can do. So, whether or not you think it's a big issue, employers still will need to be supporting, again, roughly 1 in 4, 1 in 5 young people who are struggling with these issues. So thinking about, how do we make jobs flexible by default? How do we make sure that we have enough training for managers, that they understand how to support someone practically rather than just in a crisis situation, which can also be really important. When it comes to the health system, mental health is still sort of the poor relation when it comes to how much funding is given to it, how much time is given to it. So getting some of those wait lists down, making sure people can actually get the help they need to recover and get back on the right path is a really important part of it. And then in the benefit system, again, we do hear some stories about how people want to give a job a go, they want to try, but they're worried about where they might end up afterwards. If that doesn't work out for them, will they end up in a worse position financially than they already were? And the benefit system is not particularly generous, particularly to younger people.
Yes.
So things like the government suggested around the right to try, where you know that if you give a job a go, it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you're not going to end up in a worse position. That's really sensible. But thinking more generally, and going to some of the points that Siobhan made before this about where are the touch points between employers, how do you sort of bring in more tailored support? How do you help both sides to understand each other? I think are really important ones too.
Yeah, and I just want to hear your thoughts, by the way, on the influence of social media, on the willingness of at least some young people to work, because starting a new job at the bottom rung of the ladder can be testing. It can be, very often will be, not very well paid. And then at the same time, there are the messages, the images, the videos on social media of a glamorous, affluent life on tap. Does that perform the role of a deterrent when it comes to people putting in the hard work at the bottom of the ladder, do you think, or is that another misconception?
When we do, again, as I said, we do research all the time with thousands of people who have mental health problems. That's not something that we hear coming up very often. It is much more the practical bread and butter issues of how can I find a job that is going to meet my needs and that understands that, I might need a bit of extra support or my health might affect me in this way. So again, there's a totally legitimate debate to be had there about the impact it has, although I'm not sure it would have been, we could have been having this conversation 20 years ago and it might have been talking about what lifestyle does MTV or whatever portray or encourage people to have. But really focusing, I think in some ways it ends up being a distraction on what we actually know we can change and what we can do, and a lot of the issues that Alban Milburn has pointed to.
Yes, I suppose the difference is it's just so much more pervasive now, but it's good to get your thoughts. Conor D'Arcy, the Martin Lewis charity Money and Mental Health, thank you.